Good morning. When we left off in part 1, we finished the bottom, or nearly finished the bottom. There was actually a few pieces left to do. I had to add the backsplash offline, and there was these two little pieces down here. This piece and the one on the other side that I added offline. The other thing I did is, if I select both of these, whoops, I'll have to select them one at a time. I use the extended entity info to mark those as other items, and I put something in here. The something I put in here is both the component name, although it looks like I got that wrong. That should be a capital L. And the dimension. And the reason for that is when it shows up in the cut list, it'll show up in the other items category, and it will give you the dimensions for that particular part, the overall dimensions. And it's going to be an externally purchased part. In other words, most cabinet shops don't make their own countertops. They have the countertops made by a third party. So I did the same with the countertop that I did with the backsplash. And the other thing I did was I created a base trim layer and put all the base trim on it. I select all of this, and notice this is all rough lumber maple. I checked the cabinet resize mode and resize the width by 3/4 of an inch and the length by 1 inch. That means all these pieces, when they are initially cut, will be cut 3/4 of an inch wider than finished dimension and 1 inch longer than finished dimension. And that's typical of hardwood, or at least in my shop it's typical of hardwood. The other thing I did was I protected all of this. CabWriter protected simply means that if you want to redraw your cabinets using the redraw selected cabinets or redraw all cabinets, things that are marked as protected won't be redrawn. They'll just remain as they are. The reason for that is if you customize a CabWriter part or add a part to a cabinet like we did here, you don't want to be redrawing the cabinet and then having to redraw all of those changed or custom parts all over again. So you can protect them from being redrawn or eliminated once the redrawn is done with those redraw all or redraw selected cabinet tools. Okay, so with that, let's get back to drawing the top cabinet. The top cabinet is nothing more than a divided upper. I used sheets on the end instead of a frame and panel, just plain old plywood sheets. I'm going to change them later to hardwood, but we'll start off with plywood sheets. And then when we create this nice little curve, we'll change them to hardwood sheets. We'll add this little shelf. We will bring in a profile for this trim and create the trim and add it. But the majority of the work is going to be done by CabWriter. And it's going to draw the upper divided with 3 draws and 3 doors. One of the things you may have noticed in the last video, and if you haven't, take notice in this video, is how little time we spend in CabWriter. The time is spent in things like this, the trim, this shape, and these shelves. That's where all the time is consumed. So what I'm going to propose to you, and I will show you how to do it in a future blog, is whenever you have to do trim like this, do it once, create a library, put it in the library so that you never have to recreate it again. Build up a bunch of libraries of trim. and things like that. Or special ends. You can even make a library of special ends like this. Those are the things you don't want to have to take time to redraw. But what they will provide you is a library of shapes that are not common in CabWriter and that can be added to make things look more like furniture or more high-end than just simple cabinets. So I'll show you how to do that in another blog. But today we'll just go through the whole process. All right, let's get started. Okay, we're back here with where we left off in part 1. These are the construction points that I had originally laid out just to save time offline. And that's where we're going to start. Now remember, the first thing I want to do is start with a baseline set of defaults. So to do that, I'm going to go back. I changed some of the defaults for the bottom cabinet. So I'm going to go back to reset factory or reload factory settings. And I'll save my file. And now I'm going to change some of the factory settings. So I'll come back here. This is a standard face frame cabinet. Let me take this off the video here for a moment. This is a standard face frame cabinet with a bottom rail on top, just like most other uppers that we do. But it's an it's a divided upper, so we can put drawers in it. The only thing I really need to change here is the height of the cabinet. So let me go back to our drawing and bring the defaults back in and go to the upper cabinets. I'm going to change this from 54 inches to 36. Anytime I make a change like this, I need to either update it or switch to another tab, which will automatically update it, or close it, which will also update it. But don't just type something into these fields and expect them to be updated. You have to use the update button. Okay, so let's see what happens when we draw this. Now, let me bring that back a little bit. If I look at the face frame, I want the upper drawers to have a slab front. I could do that by going to the Drawers tab and choosing slab here. But I happen to know that the draw front is going to be small enough that it's going to draw it as a slab anything, because anything under a certain amount, and I think it's 6 inches right now, will be drawn as a slab, so I don't have to worry about it. Okay, let's draw this cabinet. Start here, and I'm going to choose a left end sheet. And I'll go to the other end, and I will also choose a sheet, right end sheet this time. I'll put my styles in here, connector styles, and I'll hit end on the keyboard, and I want a divided upper. I want a 5/8 inch offset so that the dividers are 5/8 or 3/8 of an inch above the rails. I'll show you that in a moment. And at 6 inches, I want a fixed shelf in position 1. And that's the only other positions I want. Everything else wants to be blank. Now I can say next, and I want the next cabinet or next box actually to be exactly the same. So I'll just leave it the way it is. And the same thing here. I want the last box to be the same. There you go. Now we have our divided upper. So now we can put the doors and drawers in. And I'm going to start with the rectangle tool. And I'm just going to put the faces in here. Now, what I want is I want for these three faces to be doors and for these three faces to be draws. I'm going to create a mistake, and I'm going to do it intentionally to show you the kind of trouble you can get into. But I will give you a hint. Whenever you're doing this, start with the draws first, and that'll become clear in a moment. What I'm going to do, select this draw and use the Insert a Draw tool. And I get an error. And what it says is it could not find a box height small enough to fit into an opening height of 4 1/8 while allowing for a top clearance of 1/4 inch and a bottom clearance of 9/16. What that simply means is if you go to the Draws tab in the CabWriter settings and look at the available draw boxes you can choose from, let's open that up, the Draws setting. Notice the smallest draw box I can draw from is 4 1/4. But I need something that's 4 1/2 minus 1/4 inch and minus 9/16, or I believe that works out to 3 5/16. So what I need to do is I need to make this 3 1/4. But before I can do that, I want to step back here and get rid of that draw box that I've just drawn. So I'll use the Undo tool. There we go. Whoops, one too many. There we go. So now I'm back to where I was. Now I can go to this, change that smallest draw to 3 1/4 and update it. Again, I've got to update things to make sure they get recorded. Now that I've done that, what I need to do is redraw these cabinets, because internal to the cabinets are the defaults that were used to draw that cabinet, and one of those defaults is that smallest draw of 4 1/4. So if I go and draw another draw, it's going to look at the internal defaults and use 4 1/4. I want to replace the internal defaults with my new set of defaults, which is 3 1/4. So I'll select one part. I'll say CabWriter, Redraw, Selected Cabinet. It says use the internally stored defaults. No, I want new ones. I want the ones that I just changed to 3 1/4. Okay, there we go. Now I can go ahead and redraw this. So I use the Insert a Draw, and I get a draw. I'll do this again. Insert a Draw, and get a draw. Insert a Draw. Insert a Door. That's this tool here. It says, how many doors do you want there? I'm going to say 1. Same thing here. 1. Same thing here. 1. So the important part about this, when you use the Insert a Door, and particularly the Insert a Draw tool, is you have to think ahead. Otherwise, you're going to have to do a lot of undoing to recover. Think ahead. The very first thing you want to do when you use a divided upper or divided base is to figure out what's your smallest draw and how big can it be, allowing for the clearances. And then go back and make sure that either you change the clearance, this one and this one, or you change the smallest draw, or some combination of all three, so that the arithmetic works. Okay, enough of that. And again, if you have a number of doors and draws, always start with the draw first, and then if you get the error, you'll get it right away and you won't have too much undoing to do. All right, so now we're done with CabWriter. CabWriter's done its job for this, for drawing this cabinet. Now we need to put on the special trim and redraw the sides. So we'll start with that. Okay, this is the side I'm going to be working on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear all layers, bring up just the upper boxes, choose this guy, enter, first of all, unlock it, enter edit component mode, and to make life easier, I'm going to view, I'm going to hide rest of model, so I'm just seeing this. And, okay, I'm going to bring it down 10 inches. I'm going to extend the side 10 inches. Now I need a grid to work on. I have a tool in my Construction Plus extension, and you can download it from the CabWriter website. It's free. And that's this grid right here, construction grid. I'm going to start here. Go to this corner. Go up, oh, I don't know. Go up 12 inches. Whoops. Let me make that 1. There we go. Actually, let me make it a quarter. I'm going to make it a half. Okay, that's good. And I'll just go up here and amount above. Well, I'll just go up and make sure I got enough up here. I don't need all of that, but so now I'm going to go up the 10-inch mark. That's right there. So I don't want to go above that with my curve. All right, now I want to create a curve. And let me get rid of the construction lines here. Whoops. I can't get rid of construction lines because that's where the grid is. Let me get rid of the axis so that's not in my way. And I want a curve that's going to roughly go from one corner of this to this corner. Right there. And I want it to go something like this. So I'll take another construction line, come up about 5 inches, and this is 13 inches or 12 3/16. And I'd like a half of that. I'd like it to be 6 inches from here, because I'm going to put a 6-inch shelf in there. So I want my curve to bend here someplace. So let's just see what we can do. I'm going to take my construction point tool, which also comes with Construction Plus, and I'm just going to start plotting some points. Let me get the bigger view in here. I'm just, whoops, that's not what I wanted. And so what I'm going to do now is take another tool called the Bezier Curves tool. I'm going to start here. My inflection point is going to be about here. So now I will take this tool, come up here like this. I'm going to zoom in here a bit. Make it go something like that. And then take that tool again, go down here to this endpoint. And do that again. Down here to that endpoint. And something like that. Okay, now I think I've got it. So see, I just roughed out very roughly some points, and then I used the Bezier curve tool to make it a little more interesting. So let me get rid of, this is going to be a little messy. The reason it's going to be a little messy is because I've got this groove here. So to take care of that, what I'll do, I'm going to maybe X-ray mode will help here. There. That'll help now. Now if I get out of X-ray mode, I can use the push-pull tool. There we go. Went all the way. I want to soften this line here. And I guess I have to get rid of this little... Oh, it didn't go all the way. Got to add a little line here. Subtract a line here. There we go. Now I've got it, and I can get rid of these. I might find that I got a problem here, but we'll see. That wasn't good. All right. Now what I want to do is get rid of the construction lines that I put in here. I also want to get rid of my grid. I don't want that to be a part of this. And using the right to left method, well, no, I can't do that. Let me just delete guides here, get rid of those construction points. And then, I don't know what this is down here, but I have to get rid of it. There we go. Okay, I think I got what I wanted. Let's go to perspective view. All right, I do have a problem here. I don't want to see that. So let me go back into edit component mode. And I really did want those lines. Nope, that's not what I want. Yes, it is. There we go. Now we got to stop dado in there, and that's perfect. All right. Now that I've got that, I want one on the other side, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this one and delete it. And this one I'm going to make part of this cabinet. So first of all, I'm going to explode it. There we go. That's not working for me. Explode it. And now I'm going to make it a component again and give it the same name it had before. And since I'm going to give it the same name as it had before, I have to get rid of the one that's in the library. So what I'll do is I'll go to Windows or Extensions, and I have one called Purge. And I'll purge everything that's not used in the model. Notice it's purging two components. And what those two components are is the one that used to be this end and the one that used to be down this end. Now I'm free to make this a component and give it the name that this one used to have. And I'll do that using this tool. Before I do that, let's find out. This should be C2 upper. Well, actually, it's called C4 upper. I think because we drew it a couple of times. So we'll take C4 upper, for now, and we'll rename this C4 upper, and I'm going to call it end. I'm not going to call it sheet. I'm just going to call it, well, I'll call it N for now. Yeah, I'll just call it end. And for now, I'll call it custom part. And I'll call it left end. And I'm going to lock it. CabWriter protected. Now I can take and copy that. Using the Move Copy tool. Put one over here. And now I'll call this one right end. Now I'm going to select both of them. Actually, it doesn't matter. I don't need to select both because they're both the same component. Notice there's two of them in the model. They're both the same component. So I can call this, in the extended entity info, I can call this rough lumber, maple, and I'm going to resize it 3/4 of an inch in width and 1 inch in length, and it is protected, so there we go. All right, now notice this is C4 upper. This is C1. Also, these parts I made are C4. Well, one of the things I might want to do right now is simply renumber everything just by clicking that. Now if I look at this guy, notice it's C2 upper. Any other part I choose should be C2 upper. There we go. All right, now I'll lock these parts. I've got those done. I have to put the little shelf in down here, but I'll do that later. Okay, now for the fun part. We're going to put the molding on this cabinet. And the way I did that was I searched the internet for a molding profile I liked, found a JPEG, and I'm going to bring it into the model right now. So I'll say File, Import. There it is right there. And I'm going to attach it to that point if I can. And see if I can get it to, yeah, that's about right. I'll just click there. Now, it's not really in the plane I want, so let's see if it's in a plane that's consistent with this edge. All right, that looks like it's on, looks like the edge of the JPEG is on that line right there. Good. So I'm going to rotate this using the rotate tool, and it's selected. So if I just go to this point right here, come back, and then this way, 90 degrees. Type in 90. Now I've got it where I want it, or almost where I want it. And what I want is I want a rectangle. Notice this is supposed to be 3 1/8 by 3 1/8, or 4 5/8 across the diagonal. Well, let's take the 3 1/8 by 3 1/8 for the moment. Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to create a rectangle, but before I do, let me mark something off here. I want this trim. I want this to start down about 3/4 of an inch here. So now I've got my 3/4 of an inch point. And I'm going to create, using the rotated rectangle tool, I'm going to create a rectangle 3 1/8 by 3 1/8. By 90, look in the VCB and you'll see it says 90, comma, 3 1/8. All right, so I have a rectangle. Hopefully those are on the same plane. It's important that they be on the same plane. And it doesn't look perfect to me, but we'll see. You can get into a lot of trouble with these if they aren't quite right. All right, now I got to scale this. So I'm going to take a measurement. I'm going to set some things up here. I'm going to set this up to come to about that point right there. And it says that this distance is 3 1/8. So let's measure what it actually is. Looks to me like it's actually 11 51/64. I'm going to write that down, 11 51/64. But it's supposed to be 3 1/8. So I'm going to take my calculator. I'll bring that in here. And 3 1/8. I'll start with that. That's 3 1/8. And 51/64. And 11. And I'm going to divide those two. And now I have a scale factor of 0.264900 something. I'll actually use all those digits. I'm going to take this offline. Well, yeah, I'm going to take it offline. And I'm going to scale this. Let's scale it down in this direction. And I'm going to type in 0.264900 6622 51656. Hit enter. Now I'm going to use the X-ray. And I'm going to bring this point down to here. I'm going to pick this up. Let's say that point and bring it to that point right there. Now something's wrong with the scaling. Not quite sure what, but you'll notice that if this were really 3 1/8 by 3 1/8, since that's registered correctly, It looks to me like it needs to go up more. The other thing is this says it's 4 5/8 in this direction. Let's just check it and see what it really is. Whoops, I don't want that. It's 4 and very close. Yeah, it's almost 4 5/8. So it's very accurate. Let's leave it the way it is. And now we're going to trace this. Now if I turn off X-ray, I can see that the rectangle is the thing I want to draw on, and it's slightly in front of this. That might get me in trouble, but let's hope that I'm always on the rectangle. This guy. So let's start. I'm going to start with this point right here. I want the pencil tool. Start with this point right here. And I'm going to draw a point up here. And 21/64 is probably, or 30 seconds is probably 30 seconds. So that's, what is that? That's 5/8. Let's call it 5/8. And let's draw a line from there up here. Oh, I'm going to say about like that. And then a line out to here on edge. I'm going to say 32/64. Okay, and leave that alone for the moment. Now I'm going to come out from here to here, and 12/30 seconds. Yeah, 12/30 seconds. And where's that? Okay, that's a little more than I wanted. I'll make it 11/30 seconds. That's better. That's better. All right, now I can trace with the draw tool, Bezier curves. I'm going to start here. And what I have to do is make sure that I'm on the face. The question is, am I on the face in the image or on the face? I think I'm on face in the rectangle, hopefully. That doesn't look good at all. I'm going to undo that. And the other thing I don't like, this line doesn't seem to be right. I'm going to make it 34/64. That's better. Now I'm going to use the draw tool, Bezier curves tool. You can notice this is not a science at all. And you can spend an awful lot of time at this. I wouldn't. But I'll spend enough time to make it look right. Now, if you're lucky, there you go, you get a face just like that. Sometimes you don't, but if you're careful and you try to make sure every point you use is actually on the face, then you'll be okay. Now I can get rid of this. And I'm going to get rid of some of this. There's a little crossover here too. All right. What I need now is a path. I'm going to create a path around the top edge. And I'm going to select that path. Now it's a simple matter of choosing the Follow Me tool, this one right here, hovering over this and clicking. Now, notice I've got a color that's darker than the rest of it, which simply means my faces are reversed. But before I fix that, the other thing I notice is that I got a few lines I shouldn't have here. These lines shouldn't be here, nor should this one right here. And they're an artifact of curves coming together. So let me back up, show you what I can do. Well, there's a couple of ways to handle this. One is I can use the Weld tool on the profile, or I can simply use the Smooth tool. I'm going to use the Smooth tool. With the eraser tool and the control key, I can just come over that and make that smooth. I don't want these abrupt changes, lines, to be smooth. I only want the ones that are curves to be smooth. There we go. Now we got it. Now the other thing we want to do is triple click this, right click, and say reverse faces. And now we've got what we want. Let's get rid of the guidelines. And I can get rid of those by just turning off the construction layer. All right, now there's one more thing. Before I make this a component, what I'm going to do, select it, move it away, okay, actually I'm going to copy it and move it away, and I'm going to do that twice. I'm going to copy it twice. Then I'm going to come in real close with the line tool, and I'm going to see where I've missed lines. And the issue here is, if these were miter cuts, oh, I got some other lines to fix up. I better do that right now. Not on this one, I'll do it on the other one. The issue is, if these were miter cuts, there would be a line there. There would be a line here. And I believe we probably have all the lines we need around back. Yeah, that looks like we have all the lines we need there. So what I want to do, using the rectangle tool in a right to left fashion, select these and get rid of them. Then I want to come in here and look real close. Do I still have an end there? I do. Do I still have an end back here? I do. All right, so that part looks okay. We'll leave that alone for the moment. And we'll come out here and work on this one. Now this one I do want to come in and fix up these lines, soften them. And again, I've got to add lines for the miter cuts. And I've got to do it at both ends. Okay. Now, again, using the left to right motion, I'll get rid of that. Get rid of that. Do some examining here. Looks good. Now I can make parts out of them and put them back in place. So right now I'll just make them a component and not worry about the name of the part. And I'll do the same to this one. And I'm going to put it back where it belongs. Hopefully that's it. And if it is it, I should be able to triple click this, get rid of it, and I still got that in place. There we go. Now I can put the other one in here. It didn't look right, did it? There we go. And we'll take this one, put it down the other end with a control copy. Flip along green. Move it into place. Now we're ready to name them. Now this cabinet is C2 upper. I'm going to use the rename tool with C2 upper. And I'm going to call this crown molding. And for the moment, I'll call it a custom part. And I'll give it an instance name of left crown molding. I'm going to protect it. By all means, protect it. And that's it. Now I'm going to take the front part here, and it too is C2 upper. I'm going to rename it custom part. Crown molding. And I'm going to give it an instance name. Wait a moment, I got to be careful here. Let me cancel this. I called this crown molding with an instance name of left crown molding. I should call it end crown molding. and call this left end crown molding. All right, now I can C2 upper, custom, front crown mold. Otherwise I was going to have the same name for both the end and the front. And protect it. And lastly, I can come over here and delete it. I'll delete that. I'm going to copy this one again. I shouldn't have copied it the first time because I didn't rename the part yet. Flip it along green, attach it, and call it right end. And crown molding. Lastly, I'm going to select all, well, I don't need to select all three. I only need to select two. But I'm going to make it rough lumber, maple, and again, 3/4 of an inch, oversized, and an inch oversized in length. Now I can probably put a layer in here called upper trim. And I'll put these 3 pieces on it. Put those on the upper trim layer. And now as I go back, I'll have to correct my scenes. I'll have to include the upper trim. And I'll readjust this a little bit. Update my scene. I want that on the cut list as well. So I'll put both the bottom trim and the upper trim on the cut list. I don't want the construction lines. I don't want the walls. I don't want the countertops. Where are the countertops? Those on custom parts? They are. So I don't want that on the cut list. I'll update that. And lastly, I'll update the CNC, which only wants to be, oh, I can get rid of this. The CNC only wants to be the base boxes, the base ladder, and the upper boxes. And that's it. So I'll update that. And there we go. The only thing we don't have here is the shelf. The way I did the shelf is I provided a couple of dados and put the shelf in with a tongue on each end. And I'm going to leave that up to you, the student, to do that. So there we go. Have a good day. In a future blog, I'm going to show you how to avoid all this work, more than once at least, and how to make a library of these kinds of parts and how to use them on any size piece of furniture very quickly. Because you notice that in both of this, the first video in part 1 and this video here, we spent most of our time on the trim. Very, very little in CabWriter. Very little. I didn't show you how to put these draw pulls on here, but maybe I'll save that for another one as well. Okay, have a good day.